We get to our keynote speaker, one of the most distinguished coaching careers in the National Football League history officially concluded when Dick Vermeil announced his retirement from professional football in January of 2006. Dick Vermeil spent 15 seasons as an NFL head coach and was a member of the league's coaching fraternity for 19 seasons. And very recently, he became an NFL Hall of Fame coach in the class of 2022. Please welcome Coach Vermeil.
You know, I coached for 32 years, then I broadcast the game for 14. So these kind of opportunities are exciting to me because it gives me a team to coach. And everyone asks you, what do you miss? I said, I miss being the leader. I miss, being the guy that is in front of a group every day and directing and guiding and disciplining and motivating an organization. And, my last game was January 1st, 2006. We played the Cincinnati Bengals in Kansas City. And that was the last game I coached. And from then on, I'm an expert. I'm a fan. I'm like you guys. I know what everything's going on. I can criticize. I can do whatever I want. I can read the sports page. I can listen to the radio talk shows, which you never did when you were coaching because they were usually chewing your ass out. So I just I stayed away from it. But I miss it. I miss that opportunity. But over the years of coaching, I developed a philosophy of coaching that I really never sat down and wrote about until I got out of coaching because I had a lot of time. Having coached in high school as an assistant coach and a head coach, having coached in junior college as an assistant coach and a head coach, having coached Division I football at Stanford as an assistant head coach at UCLA, then an assistant coach in pro football, then a head coach with 3 different teams, I developed an approach in leadership and a philosophy in leadership. And it got deeper and deeper in meaning to me over the years. But I never sat down and wrote it. I just expressed it and went to work every day in leading the organization. So when I got out of coaching, I started writing, not in a book form, but in presentations and stuff, and it was stimulating to me. I also started studying what other leaders in intense environments, not some leader that teaches it in an master program that never really has led anybody but knows a lot about it. I started studying the Navy SEALs and other great coaches, other great military men and all that kind of stuff. And I learned a little better way to express what I believed in by reading what great writers. I was not an English major, I was a physical education major, okay? And I wanted to be a high school football coach, and that's what I did. So I learned a lot in the process of being retired, and I've really enjoyed it. I'm gonna share with you the principles I call common sense principles of leadership. Common sense principles of leadership. I call it common sense because common sense is not always common practice. It's amazing how many people complicate trying to get better. Politicians are great at it. I mean, really. And I've been around a lot of people. And I'm not bragging that I did it right or anything like that, but I had time to improve my approach as a leader, starting as high school, then ended up in the NFL and getting to wear a Super Bowl ring. So I've been through the process. And I'll repeat it, common sense is not common practice. I'm not sure that we in our country, especially in some of our leadership positions, even recognize the value of common sense. A lot of great things have been accomplished by people with a great work ethic, a compassion for people, and a common sense approach to solving problems. And it didn't complicate it by attacking the problem in a too sophisticated way. So I started writing them down. And I've enjoyed doing it. I learned a lot from coaches I've worked for and with. I've coached with 25 different guys that either were head coaches in the NFL when I coached for them, at that time, had been a head coach in the past or became one later, 25 different guys. So the Bill Walshes, the Jim Moores, the John Ralston, the Tommy Prothros, the Chuck Knoxes, the Mike Martzes, the Al Saunders, the Jim Hannafins, these guys all led NFL teams. And I learned something from all of them. But what I also learned, it had to fit what I believe in. It had to fit with me and what I have learned. And I had such an advantage over most coaches in the NFL because I was a high school football coach. when kids are 15, 16, 17 years old and very impressionable. And I loved it because it gave me a foundation. And people asked me about my NFL career. I said all I was really was a more sophisticated high school football coach, coaching pro football players. Bigger, faster, and making a lot of money. Okay. And you could pour them a glass of wine legally. Okay. So, you know, that's how I looked about it. You know, and I've coached Heisman Trophy winners. I've coached MVPs, 15 different players in the NFL Hall of Fame. 11 of them, I was the head coach. 4 of them, I was the assistant coach on staff. So I've seen it all. And when I got out of coaching, it gave me time to start condensing what I really believe in, you know. And like the Navy SEALs, simple but not easy. Simple but not easy. Really, leadership is simple but not easy. It's simple to define what you've got to do. So I spent time doing it, and I'm going to share with you. I call them 7 common sense principles of leadership. 7 common sense principles of leadership. And I don't have them ranked in order. That's for the person that listens to me or writes a note down. They can rank them in their order. But these principles were learned in the field by working with a 16-year-old quarterback, you know, and working with a Hall of Fame quarterback. I talked to 2 of my Eagle players on the way here today, Jerry Sizemore and Keith Krefley, my right tackle and tight end. I was with Bill Berge yesterday, but I learned from these guys. And I'd like to believe they made me a better football coach. Fortunately for me, I'm an end product of all these guys. I'm going to the Hall of Fame in August. That shocked me because I think there are so many people. Oh, thank you. It really shocked me and overwhelmed me because I know some other coaches that should be in there before me, and that's how I feel about it. You know, Dan Reeves, Mike Holmgren, Mike Shanahan, these guys, Chuck Knox, you know, Marty Schottenheimer's won 203 games, 8th most winning coach in football. He's passed away. He's not in the Hall of Fame. But, you know, I'm going to accept it. But it's my guys that put me in there. I go in there standing on their shoulders. Because all I did was help them be what they had the ability to be. But really, isn't that what leaders are supposed to do? You don't have to be a football coach. I mean, you can be working in your organizations. Your job as a leader is to help people be the best they could possibly be. So I started writing around what I really believed in. And you know what my number 1 principle is? Simple as it may sound, make sure your people know you care. People complicate that. People complicate that. Coaches complicate it. I've worked with coaches that I thought complicated it. You know, anyway, make sure your people know you care. Years ago, I read an article when the Roosevelt family, I think it was Mrs. Roosevelt, President's wife, made the statement, people don't care how much you know until you know how much you care. Well, as a football coach, I cheated. I changed it from people to players. Players don't care how much you know until you know how much they care, and until they know how much you care, really. And you know, and I built the whole approach to coaching on that. Why? Because I learned from the kids. I learned what worked best working with these young people, and it just helped me. Good leaders are persuaders. There are people that can synchronize thinking. Okay, a lot of people say put you on the same page. I say no, you synchronize how your organization thinks. You have a whole group that think the same. Every day they come to work. Every day they go home. They come back to thinking the same. But it takes leaders to persuade people to join in a method of thinking, an approach to thinking, and these kinds of things. And I just know the first step in getting people to do that is for them leaving the office, for them leaving the football field, no matter how hard they worked or the negative things that happen, that you care. That you care. You care about them as a person, as a parent, as a father, as an employee, as a president. And I think caring in my organizations always started from the top. You know, I brag about this. I've coached 3 NFL teams successfully and have never been fired. I'm the only guy that's ever done that. Never had an agent. Probably not a good business, but I never wanted anybody. No, serious. I just never wanted anyone between me and the guy that owned the team. And as soon as you have a guy dealing in contracts and telling an owner how much he thinks you're worth and all that, that starts driving a spike in between the two of you. I never had it. And because, making a living is important, but it was, to me, the most important thing was to start winning football games, and then everything else would take care of itself. But I always felt it started with your players and your staff and your organization know you care. I was very fortunate in 2 of the 3 jobs. I had 51% vote on anything that went on that dealt with a football. Now you stop and think about a pro football team. You think about the Eagles, the Atlanta Falcons, Kansas City Chiefs, St. Louis or Los Angeles. That's what they do. They're in business in football. And I had a 51% control in terms of not power, but control to make decisions that best affected positive outcomes within that group. And it really allowed me to learn, to grow, to care more about the people that were trying to help me do it, both staff and everything, but it allowed me to go in every room in the building. From the lady that took the phone calls at the front desk, to the equipment guy, to the custodians, to the groundskeepers, it allowed me to go one-on-one with them. And I enjoyed so much, and I learned so much about what makes an entire organization click. And to me, it ended up being, just make sure they know you care. What I found out is if you care, they will care. And every once in a while, you'll find someone that doesn't care as much as you do. Get him a job with your competition. Let him play for the Giants, okay? Let him play for the Giants. Giant fans are like USC Trojan fans. The first thing they tell you as a coach is, I'm a Giant fan. You can be in Southern California, first thing they say, I'm a USC fan. But nothing negative about the Giants, but we beat them 12 times in a row. But anyway, just don't ever underestimate the value of letting people know you care. It's no good if you know, if they don't know. And you've got to show it. They've got to know it. This is how you develop the mental toughness within an organization. This is how you bring them together to handle the tough times, handle the COVID, handle the competition. The more they care, the more they give. And it's not always related to how much money you're paying them. It's rated because we belong to an organization that wants to succeed. And we care about our leadership team. We care about our product. We care about how we play on Sunday. We care about how we conduct ourselves off the football field. I've cut more guys because they didn't fit my image off the field than I've cut sometimes that couldn't play well enough on the field. Everything centers around people knowing you care about them. And it's amazing. We all need a vision of how we want to end up in the future. And it really, a future is invisible. Hell, you create it every day you go to work, especially in a football team. You create it every day you go to work. And if you don't create a future of people caring about each other and working for each other, the teams gradually disintegrate when adverse situations occur. There have been NFL teams that have lost year after year after year. Came to Philadelphia. They hadn't been in the playoffs since, 1960? And we go there in 1978. How many years is that? Even I'm a math major. I can figure that. That's 18 years. And the number one, we didn't have any first, second, third round draft choices my first year. We didn't have a first, second round, or third round draft my second year. We didn't have a first or second my third year. But we had was an opportunity to care about each other, keep working, and get better. And today, my guys are 68, 70 years old, these guys I coached on those teams. The number one thing they cherish is the time they spent together. And how they don't care, they don't really care about each other, they love each other. And I think guys that have been in the Second World War and maybe in the Vietnam and that were in the intense world of war develop a camaraderie that overpowers lack of talent many times. And it simplifies the decision making because everybody is synchronized in how they think. It really is. Just remember, people care about people who care about them. And there are very few people, especially today in our society, very few people mentally tough enough, and disciplined enough to give their best on a consistent basis to somebody they don't care about, somebody they don't trust. Very, very difficult. 30% of the 511 coaches that have carried the name NFL head coach were fired after the first year. Now, that's poor leadership from the ownership standpoint on down. But many times they create their own problems because they didn't transmit the fact that we're going through adversity, we're going to get better, we're going to experience losing, we're going to get our ass kicked, and we're going to lose a lot of games, but you know something? Our future's bright because we're going to care about each other, we're going to line up and play, and by the time we get this thing turned around, it's going to take a hell of an organization to beat us, take a hell of a company to beat us. And that little principle with me probably is the number one most significant contributor to me going in the Hall of Fame. Okay, my Philadelphia Eagle team are organizing what I understand, I wouldn't want to be on the bus, organizing a bus, and they're all going together in August. I don't know what shape they'll be in when they get there, but I saw them at Harold Carmichael's party last year, and I'd say they admit it might be a rough 4 days or so in Canton, Ohio, but I knew. I was never embarrassed to take caring to the next level. I'm an emotional guy, I have been all my life, sometimes to a strength, sometimes to a weakness. But I was never embarrassed to say I love you to a player, to a coach. And it's not the same kind of love you have for your wife and your own kids, but it's beyond you like them. But it's beyond you trust them. It's beyond you care about them. Jerry Sizemore, the driver, can tell you who drove me here. I had the speakerphone. The last thing he said to me is, "I love you, Podna." He's a Texas kid. "I love you, Podna." Now, he doesn't love me like he loves his wife and family, but it's beyond he respects me. And when that permeates a football team, it's amazing how much more consistently they play. It's amazing how much more consistently they prepare to play. The great thing about football, it's physical. If you want to get better in anything, you repeat it, you work at it, you work at it, you work at it, you work at it, and you gradually get better. But if your mind isn't right, you don't particularly care about the guy that lines up next to you, and you don't trust the head coach, you don't trust your linebacker coach, it's a difficult challenge. It's a difficult challenge. And I really think some of our more sophisticated young coaches today pass up this concept, and they get right into the X's and O's and all these seasons, free agency and all that kind of stuff. I can remember Leonard Toast coming to me, and I'm not bragging about, but it's what I believed, because I knew what I was getting into when I came here. And he said, he was always short of money, but he spent it anyway. That's what eventually cost him the team, okay? He would come to me, "We can buy this player. He's out on the market." And it wasn't free agents at that time, but you could sign this guy. He was out on the market. And I said, "Leonard, I don't want to do it. We're not going to buy a team, we're going to build a team. Now, it's going to take a little longer." But 5 years into our mission, we went to the Super Bowl. And 12 guys off the original guys under contract went with me. 12 guys. And I'll tell you, those 12 guys, I don't know if they would die for each other, but I'll tell you this. You would not want to get in a fight against them, because they are so tight together and how much they care about each other, and they love each other. So that's why I really believe, it's a synchronizing, it's a bonding process that builds organizations. I think it can be infectious within your organizations and your companies, and it really makes a difference. I recognized a long time ago, all the way back in high school, if you take good care of your people, they will take good care of you. That's why I'm going to the Hall of Fame. My people took good care of me. They made me a hell of a lot better coach than I really was. I never ran the ball. I never threw 6 touchdown passes in one game. I never stopped. I never played linebacker. Played high school ball, JC ball, and college ball, and wanted to be a high school football coach. From then on, I never turned down a job when someone had offered me. But really, I'm going to repeat that. If you take good care of your people, they will take good care of you. I really, really believe that. The next thing, principle number 2, is be a good example yourself and surround yourself, your business, with other good examples. Boy, When your actions speak for themselves, everybody listens. Today, especially as more sophisticated as our culture is today, they spot phonies. They form opinions. They make judgment statements on them. Be a good example. I did not want anybody in our locker room sitting next to somebody he didn't like, he didn't respect, he didn't trust. It wasn't a good example. He wouldn't work like I worked. He wouldn't do this. I didn't want him in our locker room. And people have said to me many times, how did you handle the problems? I said, easy, I got rid of them. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. I was a football coach. And I really believed in surrounding people with other good examples. You know, don't ever think when you're in a leadership position that you're not being evaluated. It's very naive to think that your people, your staff, or your customers aren't evaluating you personally. And I'll tell you, when they don't trust you, they don't work as consistently. And when you sit in a locker room and the guy next to you is bitching and moaning about how hard you're working him and he isn't getting the plate enough, the coaches are screwing me, I don't like the owner, that's a negative on the kid sitting there that just wants to make a living and get better. So I tried to recognize who they were early and get them a job with somebody we're going to play against. And I actually did that. But, you know, at the St. Louis Rams, we go to the Super Bowl in 3 years. There were only 9 guys on the roster that were there. They're under contract when we took over the team. Fortunately for there, I had first-round picks. We had free agents. We had money. We had all kinds of, so you could get smart easier. You know, you could look bright. And I surrounded my team. I'd been out of coaching for 14 years. I was broadcasting. I was the expert in the booth. And I really enjoyed it. So I had to do it differently. But I know this, I had to be the example. My staff, the people I hired, the players I kept on my staff, had to be an example. I wanted people to see in me what I wanted to see in them. It's infectious. It really is. It really is infectious. And I think this is why I always tried to be what I wanted my people to be. And I didn't always get that done. None of us are perfect. We don't always get that. But I tried to be what I wanted my staff to be, what I wanted my organization to look like, how I wanted my organization to express themselves in the media, how I wanted them to handle themselves in the public and represent the Philadelphia Eagles. I'd talk about it. Guys, we represent Philadelphia. It's one of the great old cities. And if you embarrass Philadelphia, you embarrass me and your teammates, and I'm going to run your ass out of here. I'm not going to keep you. And that was a threat, and it was. But the thing is, they knew I was telling the truth. And it's amazing how profiles of people can somewhat change, but modify their thinking when all of a sudden, this is the way you're making a living, and they have certain restrictions. And everybody working under those restrictions are good examples. They're all doing the same thing for the same reasons, for the company to succeed, for the players to succeed, for the team to succeed, and for Philadelphia, for St. Louis Rams, for Kansas City Chiefs, to be in a community where people can respect them and look up to them. And it is so important. Again, I tried to be what I wanted my people to be. And I learned that through coaching high school kids, junior college kids, and the young kids. Young kids are very impressionistic. It's amazing. Because of a high school football, I go to Calistoga High School in the Napa Valley. 129 kids in the entire school. 29 in my graduating class. A football coach comes to Calistoga, his first year out of College of Pacific, okay? It's now University of Pacific. He's a football coach. I had not thought about going to college. My dad had an old garage 25 yards behind the house. 2 first downs and you're in the front door. Yeah. And 24 hours a day he was there. And I grew up working in a garage. And so he was going to build a Louis Vermeil and Sons. Wrong. This football coach says to me, you know, kid, you could play college football if you wanted to. Well, no one told me that. No one told me that. But he was such an example to me. He inspired me. He says, you know, I'm going to go to junior college. So I did. And I walked on at San Jose State 3 semesters later and earned a scholarship and played there and went into high school coaching. Why? Because a coach inspired me. I wanted to be like him. You know, and we've all been influenced. by somebody in our lives. There are very few self-made people, regardless of what they like to write in books. Most people have had people in their lives they could emulate. He started me thinking about being a football player and a football coach. Then I go to San Jose State, and I had a head coach telling me the same thing. You'd make a hell of a football coach. Well, I just wanted to coach high school football. Before I know it, I'm getting calls from people. Stanford University calls me on the phone. You want to coach our freshman team? You kidding me? You know. And so it's so important for you as a leader to be a good example and surround yourself with other people that are good examples, not phonies, not, you know. Authenticity is an unbelievable sales force when you start dealing with people. When you're believable, when you're trustworthy. Now, you got to remember, trust is not a physical thing. It is an emotional thing. You trust people because you connect with them emotionally. Yeah. Not always based on their brilliance or their execution of their jobs. It's you connect with them emotionally. So I just believe that. And because you surround yourself with good people, you have people that set examples of how to handle adversity, how to work through tough times, you know, how to show that you care. It's not that difficult. How you balance in a leadership position, how do you balance leadership positions with family values? All these things can be transmitted through a leadership staff, a football staff. You cannot expect your staff to be what you are not. And I harp on my coaches all the time. I prepared a list of things mandatory for my assistant coaches that there was their bylaws. And one of the things was you cannot expect your team to be what you are not. If you want your guys to work and be loyal and care about you, then you better do the same thing in return. It's amazing how many times you can reshape young kids' ways of thinking. We're almost today, it's a little tougher because you grow up with a more, it's about me. It's a little bit more about me. You know, most of us, you know, I'm 85 years old. So I was raised by a totally different generation. And there's guys in here who were raised by pretty much by this. I see skinheads and gray hair. So I know some of you have been raised different than maybe we raised our own kids, and especially how our kids raise our grandkids. And we've got to be careful that we allow them to be around too many bad examples. The easy way. There are no easy ways. Really, when it's all said and done, everything you've got you earned, you worked for, and people helped you get there. And you saw other people doing it the way you would like to be able to do it. And there, consequently, you got better. I know this. No one is ever free from change. Your business world, the last few years, I can't imagine the things you've gone through. And that to come out of it successfully, you've handled adversity. And the reason you handled adversity, you had good leadership. And it was also built in your profile as a person. You know, and it helped you, and you stayed together. You cared about each other. And you come out of it, all of a sudden you have meetings again. You know, it makes such a difference. I know this. If you can handle adversity, you can handle just about anything. You know, I never wanted to be defined by how many games we lost. And I think how you handle losing will determine how long it'll be before you start winning. I'm not a blamer. I'm a corrector. I'm a disciplinarian. I'm tough on people. I work people harder than they think they should be worked. But you know, when all that starts, when everybody's doing it, when everybody is setting the example for the other guy, it almost becomes fun to go through adversity, attack the problems, line up with the guy you worked with yesterday, and find a way to do it better today. You know, that's how one of the main keys that we used in rebuilding football teams. I've never been hired to take over a winning team. Never. When we took over the Rams in 1997, I'd been out of coaching 14 years. And I had worked for the Rams and the ownership as a young coach. And when my staff I was on was fired, they asked me to stay on the staff, so I worked 1 year with Chuck Knox. And the owner of that team told me, you know, I would make you my head coach if you were older and more experienced. And he was right. I wasn't prepared to do it. And then I go to head UCLA, be successful there, and they bring me to Philadelphia. So I was fortunate to be around people that were good examples for me, that taught me how to do and how to handle the different things. And St. Louis, St. Louis lost more games between 1990 and 97 than any team in football. They beat out the Jets in losing record by 1 loss. That's not a lot you can take pride in. And in 3 years, they won the world championship. 3 years. But I'll tell you, we changed how they thought. We changed how they cared about each other. And like I said, there were only 9 people on the team that went to the Super Bowl off the team we took over. But I'll tell you, those 9 people were a foundation you could count your life on. I mean, just great, solid players and people. And the Kurt Warner stories and those kind of things. When you put people that aren't supposed to be as good as they are in an environment that cares about each other, and there's good examples all around them, all of a sudden they're better. All of a sudden they're finding out they can do things they didn't know they could do. Hell, Kurt Warner came out of the Arena League. Go see the movie, American Underdog. It's pretty accurate. Pretty accurate. Well, anyway, make sure you surround yourself with good examples and make sure you are yourself. And make sure that they can see your example out in front of everybody. Don't hide. Don't hide what you do well. Don't hide how you feel. Don't hide and don't overlook somebody that is an unbelievable example. Make sure everybody in the room knows that you appreciate and you're grateful for the example he's setting for the rest of the organization. So important. When you're authentic, I can't even say it. Authenticity is confirmed by the people that see you every day. It's amazing how much deeper and more efficient you become as a leader. So you just be a good example. People forget advice and opinions. Examples, they never forget. I've forgotten a lot of advice. I've gotten a lot of opinions. I've listened to a lot of opinions, but I have never forgotten really good examples, especially kids that I've coached. Hey, Kurt Warner's a great story. Trent Green's, Ron Jaworski's a great story. Today I did an interview. Why'd you bring Jaworski? Why'd you bring Jaworski to Philadelphia? Polish kid from Youngstown. Would he fit? I said, number one reason I was at the Rams when we drafted him. I was an assistant coach here, and I liked what I saw in his profile. Tough, hardworking kid. He could throw the ball through a car wash without getting it wet, but he may not get it to the receiver. Yeah. And it was my job to help him get it to the receiver. But anyway, you bring people that fit into the profile that you want. Now, I know this. When you do that on a consistent basis, all of a sudden you got a hell of a locker room. The next thing you got to do, number 3, is you got to build an atmosphere in which people enjoy working in. You want people to come to work? Make sure the atmosphere they're coming back into is enjoyable. It's positive. And people enjoy coming in there. It's so critical. Yeah, if all you do in a leadership position is add gloom to the doom, the atmosphere within that room, whether it's COVID or you just lost 4 in a row, hell, my first year at the Rams, we lost 8 in a row. 2 years later, we won the Super Bowl. I got the ring on. If all I did was add gloom to the doom and talk about the adversity, talk about the losing, talking about these and the bad draft choices they had made in the past, we'd have never gotten it done. And I think that's true in the business world. You got to think about the atmosphere you want people to work in. What do you do? Things like this are great. I really believe in these kind of things, not because I'm here speaking, but it gives people opportunity to sit next to people they may not even met before, but they're clients and opportunity to have a glass of scotch after and visit about family and friends and careers and all that. It brings people together. And I'm so hung up. And the one reason I always tried to get a 51% vote is so I could control, or I could at least try to control, the environment within our building. And I even though I knew our kids were going to bitch and moan about how hard we were going to work them, I wanted them to look forward to coming in the building. I wanted them to walk by the lady, Carrie Beth, front cute little gal, sitting there answering the phone, and what do they call them in offices? I forget. Yeah, anyway, I wanted to see her and a smile on her face, and we just got our ass beat yesterday. I wanted to see her smiling. And so you start this whole thing. And people, what makes you believe if someone comes in your organization or you're out on the road representing your organization and they don't particularly care about you? They don't particularly, they're just like this, Do you think you're going to be able to sell them the product you're selling? You think I am going to be able to sell them on double days and full pads? If they look at me and don't like me or don't trust what I'm saying? No. It all helps you build an environment in which people can enjoy working together. Even more so, I've always said, if I had a choice to take over a team that's been losing and a team that's been winning, as a leader, I would rather take over the loser. Does that sound very bright? No, but it would allow me to implant somebody that's already successful. It's hard to tell them there's a better way. And it might be a harder way. It might be tougher. And it might be tougher on you to keep your job because we're going to raise the standards. And that can be tough. But when you take over a losing team, at least you have a chance to look and know there's only one freaking direction to go, and that's up. That's up. And if you don't want to go in that direction, then go into some other career. Get another job. And, I've taken, I'm not bragging about it, but these things I'm passing on work for me. I took over the head coaching job at UCLA and kept 7 of the 10 assistants on the staff. And I had never worked with any of them. I'd been on their practice field as a pro coach and watched them practice, and I was impressed. And all of a sudden, I'm an assistant coach of the Rams. I got 3 weeks left in the season, and I'm now head coach of the UCLA. Okay, I'm head coach of UCLA, and I can't go. I can't go there. So what I did, I hired 7 of the 10 coaches, made one of them assistant head coach, and I said, get the job done until I get there. 2 years later, we beat the #1 team in the country, and that's why I'm in Philadelphia. So many people say, well, I've got to have my own people. Well, I got to they fire everybody. I got to fire them. I've never done that. I've always kept people off the staff. First off, it gave me insight, gave me wisdom on what's been going on in this room. And it makes him feel fortunate that you'd like him to stay there. You'd like him to stay there. But I tell you, building an environment in which people can enjoy working in. The #1 reason in the work world, from what I've read, the #1 problem with employees is they're not comfortable within the situation they're working. They just don't really care for the atmosphere. It's not that they can't do their job. It's just they don't really enjoy the overall atmosphere. And I'll tell you, there are people that have been put in leadership positions that should never have been put there. Now, they may be brilliant. They may have a PhD, but they flunked leadership. And what good is it if you're the best in the business at this one thing and you can't get your team to display the same talents so you can all be successful? And that's really happened in the NFL a lot. A great offensive coordinator gets hired. A great defensive coordinator gets hired. But they had a head coach leading the team, okay, calling all the shots within the organization. And all of a sudden, he can't handle everything. What happens, a lot of things become a distraction to what he was doing when he was successful, just running his own little private area in the offense, So I just, I can't emphasize that enough. It was so meaningful to me in terms of helping my organization succeed. It's build an atmosphere in which people could come in and go to work and enjoy being there. My locker room in Kansas City, we usually off the field and out of meetings at 5:30. I would go down there at 7:30, and there'd be 10, 15 guys playing at the pool table, or playing those little, I forget what they call it. The little, not dice, but dominoes. Yeah, around the cart playing dominoes. I'd get calls from wives. Is practice over? Shit, it's been over for 2 hours. Now, maybe the wife was mad at them and they didn't want to go home. I don't know that. But they would stay in the locker room and spend time together. So I really, really, really believe in that. And you can go, I know this, there's a lot of things that can happen that aren't good. And you know what happens? It's like cancer. It metastasizes. It gets worse. And a lot of NFL teams have folded because things have been metastasizing for so long. It's an infection in the building. I'll tell you, when I came into St. Louis Rams, you could smell losing. You walk in, you could see it on people's faces. You really, I mean, I had an equipment guy tell me, all right, coach, I'll do it, but I've been here through 3 head coaches said the same thing, and I'll be here when you're gone. I've had him say that to me. Wrong guy to say that to. Because now I have 51%. If I had 49%, he could say that to the next 2 head coaches. I'm not a control freak, but I like to have the ability to put people in place that fit and then treat them with great respect and teach them to trust what we're doing, even in the tough times. The tough times are what build good football teams. The tough times, the losing, handling the problems together, sitting on an airplane at 11 o'clock at night or midnight after playing a Sunday night game and getting your ass kicked in Oakland and flying back to Kansas City is not a lot of fun. Not a lot of fun. But if you can bring them back to work the next day and find some good things they did, you know something? We had about 54 snaps you could win a game with if we could get it to 65 snaps. We got to eliminate these last 14 snaps or these kind of things. We got to eliminate these problems. You don't attack the person, you attack the problem. Solve it. That's what leadership's about. That's what coaching is about. That's what great teachers do. That's what good parents do. And it's so important. Plus, if you're doing it right, it's easier to build self-esteem within your organization. Self-esteem is it's hard to get people to play beyond their own level of self-esteem. They'll play down, but it's hard to get them to play up until they're convinced that they belong at this level. Until they start experiencing improvement and feeling good about the investment they make in work, feeling good about what they're doing. And when that happens, boy, you can feel it in the locker room. You can come in the locker room on Monday and you just lost. I'll tell you, 1979, Philadelphia Eagles. We'd been in the playoffs for the first time in 18 years, the year before. We had the miracle of the Madeleines propelled us to that. And we lost to the Los Angeles Rams in our stadium, like 14-7. And we went in the locker room after the ball game. I can remember it like it was yesterday. And the guys were dejected because we had a tough training camp and we'd been in the playoffs, and all of a sudden we lose the first game of the season. And I say, God damn it, guys, we're a good football team. The team we just almost beat could end up being a Super Bowl team. I coached these guys a while back. I know what they got. You know what happened? At the end of the year, we went to the Super Bowl. Okay, 4 games later, we beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in Philadelphia that were undefeated world champions from the year before. And I knew, hey, November 12th, we go to Dallas Cowboys and beat the Cowboys for the first time in my career in 4 years on Monday night. But you create the environment that is conducive to people enjoying being there, regardless of what's going on, regardless if you're losing money or making money. The process of moving toward getting it all done accurately and build the self-esteem in people so they feel good about their contribution. They know you're grateful, and you express it. There are 3 things all people need: recognition, appreciation, and praise. Just don't give it to somebody that doesn't deserve it. I worked in the environment where, because he was a starter, he would get praise, and the other guy next to him didn't get it, and the other guy really deserved it. You lose your credibility. You lose your credibility one day. But I'll tell you, people have an unbelievable tolerance for praise. Like I said, it enhances self-esteem. But it's got to be real. It can't be artificial bullshit. You can't tell somebody in front of a whole roster oh boy, you're getting better, when everybody else looked at the same game films and he played lousy. You can't do that. And sometimes it takes a while for a leader to develop confidence, to attack the problem, not the person. Attack the problem. I was in one environment where if you were a backup player, you got your ass chewed out in front of everybody else. But if you were a starter, no one said anything to you. And you may not have played as well as you should have. I went the other way. I attacked the problem from the guy that's going to be playing. The guy that's on the field that you're paying to play well. Make sure he is. But you build an environment which is conducive to helping you do this. Simple, but not easy. Navy SEALs. Simple, but not easy. And I know that sometimes people get a rank. They have authority. They're the president. They're the CEO. They're the head coach. You're this and this. That is not how you establish a good environment. It's when everybody in the building has a say, and everyone's respected for what they have to say and the contribution they make to the organization. And, you know, I was the very, very first special teams coach ever hired in the National Football League, 1969. George Allen. George Allen had lost a couple games that year because the special teams didn't play very well. In fact, one of them was against Detroit in a playoff game, and the season was over. And the coaches, the whole coaching staff used to be 6 assistants and 1 head coach at that time. And each week on Friday, the 6 coaches together would coach the special teams, and they'd go play. And that's how everybody did it. And George Allen decided, you know, we've got to find an edge in this. We're not as good as we should be in this area. So he hired me, fortunately for me, and I go there. And all of a sudden, we're making the difference in winning and losing. And the atmosphere and the attitudes towards special teams really changed. All of a sudden, it was important for Deacon Jones to rush real hard and block a field goal. It was important for Merlin Olsen, who was a defensive player, to be a strong right guard in our field goal team because he's a big, strong guy and have good protection so the field goal might go through without getting blocked. All these things changed it. But again, it changed the way people thought about something that was just an afterthought on Friday and used on Sunday. And, you know, Marv Levy took my job when I left and went to UCLA as the offensive coordinator. Okay. It's about, you know, trust and respect is an amazing, amazing contributor to individuals and to collective organization. When everybody trusts everybody, everyone respects everybody, and those that don't end up staying there. It's amazing. Even guys with little problems change. Guys with little problems. But it's so critical. And I just, you know, I can harp on it, but the next thing you got to do is when you've got people that care, and you have good examples in your room, and you've got an environment that people enjoy working, you know what you have to do? You as a leader, make sure you give them great definition how we're going to get it done. What's your game plan? What's your purpose? What's your process? What's your value system? Can't be a secret. They all have to be on the same page. We had a motto in terms of our definition, the main thing is the main thing. You know what the main thing was when we came to work? Lombardi Trophy. That's why we come to work. No, I've been there twice, so I know what it's like to win one. I know what it's like to lose one. But I'll tell you, it takes the same thing to get there and lose as it does to get there and win. You got to get there. Tough. And it's not like Major League Baseball or an NBA where they play 7 of the best games. You could be playing 6 games, your 7th one wins it. In the NFL, you got 1 shot. But anyway, we define it. Our success is going to be defined by our goal to win the world championship. When I first put this sign up, this is this one I had in Kansas City. When I put that sign up by the locker room in St. Louis, honest to God truth, people thought it was a joke. They'd lost more games than anybody in football. They thought it was a joke. Somebody one night wrote some slang stuff on it because it was like a 3x5 card, a picture of the Lombardi Trophy. This is why we come to work. I'm serious. Somebody took a marking pen and wrote on it. I just left it there, but that give me fuel. That give me fuel, and it helped me define. You know, I've never asked a player that gave me the right answer when I said, how much does the Lombardi Trophy weigh? Not one of them could tell me. 7.5 pounds. Say, okay, how tall is the Lombardi Trophy? I've never had anybody say it's 22 inches tall. Never. I said, who makes the Lombardi? No one's ever told me who made the Lombardi Trophy. By the time I coached my team, they knew how much it weighed, but and more importantly, they knew how many people it was going to take to lift it. My first year here, we lost to the Raiders. We got beat. Okay, we didn't play well. We turned the ball over 3 times. Okay, and I could make excuses for it. That day, we'd beaten them in the regular season. We went into the game, we got beat. Okay, The next time we go, we wins. I know there's a difference. And it really helped me in St. Louis. The guy asked me this question this morning. What's the difference? He says, well, in St. Louis, I went on offense, we had 5 Hall of Fame players. I was a hell of a lot smarter coach. I mean, had a Hall of Fame left tackle in Orlando Pace, already in the Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame quarterback, Kurt Warner, already in the Hall of Fame. Marshall Faulk, finest athlete I think I've ever coached football, in the Hall of Fame. He's playing running back. Isaac Bruce just went in the Hall of Fame last year. The 5th guy, the other receiver, has been in the finals 3 years in a row and hadn't gotten in yet, but he'll go in. 5 guys. I was a hell of a lot better football coach. Hell of a lot better. And I really felt smart. But what we did is we provided a plan for what they had to do to get there. You know, I'd been there before. I knew what it took. And the other thing is, having been a broadcaster, I'm in NFL meeting rooms. I'm sitting in Don Shula's meeting room. I'm sitting in Bud Grant's room. I'm sitting in Bill Parcells' rooms, listening to him talk to his teams. You talk about learning. I learned so many. I also saw some things I thought we did better. I broadcast major college football games for 8 years with Musburger. You go watch Tom Coughlin coach Boston College, maybe the finest football coach I've ever seen coach. And Bill Snyder at Kansas State. Now, you don't see those guys coaching an NFL team. You saw Tom do it. What did he do? Go on and win 2 world championships for the Giants? Not a good football coach, a great football coach. Look what's happened since he's gone. Yeah, okay. But really, no, that's a great, vivid point. Leadership, leadership, leadership. And Tom was a buster, okay? I mean, he's a grinder. We're good friends, so I really know him. But anyway, you have to define things for people and then go all the way back and make sure they know you care and surround them with good examples and give them an atmosphere in which the definition of your purpose can be executed. Makes a difference. It really makes a difference. And, you know, I just think people don't always remember what you said or even what you did, but they will always remember how you made them feel. You stop and think on your own personal life. You've all been in a situation somewhere where you left and you just didn't feel good about it. And when it's in the right leadership team, that does happen from time to time, but it's not all roses. And it just, it's impossible to do the right things wrong in leadership positions. It's possible to do. You might have good intentions, and it doesn't always get done. But I really believe that. If you have a defined plan and everybody knows where they stand, what's expected of them, what the goals are, what the vision is for the company, what our bottom line is, and these kinds of things all molded together in a plan, it's amazing how much more efficiently you're going to be. What's the next thing you have to do? Number 5, you got to bring energy to the workplace. You got to go to work. Okay, you've got to go to work. Bring competitive energy every day you come to work. That's a lot easier to do, I think, in the National Football League, where that's what it is every Sunday. In your businesses, you got 7 days a week, year round, but you come to work to go to work. One of the number 1 attributes that I taught my players was hard work is not a form of punishment. Especially in the modern world today, there are a lot of kids, teenagers especially, I see it in my own family, that hard work is a form of punishment. I watched a man work with his hands until he died in a garage with his hands, okay? It was his grandfather's barn, my great-grandfather's barn. I knew what hard work was. I made sure, I didn't want to do that the rest of my life. But hard work is not a form of punishment. It's a solution. There's absolutely no correlation between getting better and working less, or working less and getting better. There's just no correlation, especially in the athletic world. I've never been in your world. I'm in the wine business, so I have a little feel for the business, but we're a real small little group. This year we bottled 1,700 cases. Normally it's 2,000, 2,300 cases of wine. High-end, expensive, quality wines. But anyway, I talk to my guy, the manager of the Napa tasting room today. And every once in a while I question, in my own mind, because I'm not there looking at him every day. A little different world. Yeah. Hard work, fatigue, a little pain are the prices that have to be paid to succeed in whatever field you're in. And as our culture, this was an easier principle to sell with the second generation kids. Like my parents, the Depression families and the kids coming out of these families, they have a better appreciation and maybe in some way a better value system in regard to the roots that made us what we are today. And a little of that, in my opinion, I'm not talking politically, a lot of that sort of disintegrates. And I just know this. There's absolutely no correlation between working less and getting better, especially true in the athletic work. There is a great correlation between a superior work ethic and eventual success. There's a great correlation to it. And if you want to do that, if you want to be successful, you've got to do things you've never done before. If you're cruising along here, and you become satisfied with it. So if you should never become satisfied. You shouldn't be satisfied when you win a Super Bowl. The Rams went back with another head coach 2 years later. They got beaten in the final minutes by New England and Tom Brady. But they got back there. But a lot of people get to a level and then they're satisfied. They get comfortable. It's the leadership's job to keep them enjoying coming to work and keep striving to do it more efficiently and a little bit better. And then recognize who your competition is. Great competition is an ally. I'll tell you who motivated the hell out of me was Tom Landry and the Dallas Cowboys. Crimey, you're trying to beat the best team in the United States. The best football coach maybe that ever coached a freaking game in the NFL. You talk about being motivated. Talk about it. And I always said this. I have never put myself in a position that I thought I could outsmart anybody. But I always thought I could outwork them. I was younger. I'd come up through and I thought I better understood kids. There are head coaches that didn't know the last names of the players they were coaching. They didn't know what their last name was. They'd call them by jersey number. So we personalized it, just like you do in high school coaching. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. You got to go to work. Yeah, I haven't found anybody. I guess the easiest way to make money is inherit it. Yeah. Have you ever recognized how many people screw that up? Because they didn't have to work for it? Yeah. We all know people that did that. Got a lot of money and they screwed it all up. All up. Because they didn't have to earn it the old-fashioned way, by working their butts off. And I was fortunate. My dad didn't finish high school. There were two things that were really critical in his family. That you had integrity. You respected your family name. I never had a rule. I had a driver's license at 14. Not that I was supposed to have. My dad lied about my age so I could get a driver's license. Not because he wanted me driving the car, because he wanted me driving the tow car. Then he didn't have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning on 3A or National Automobile. It was me to go out and pull the guy in. You should see the faces on some people when they see this 14-year-old kid get out of the tow car and hooking up their car. They go, oh my God, what do we got here? Only in Calistoga could this happen. But anyway, you know what I'm talking about. The grit of an organization, the grit of a team is developed through its work ethic. And I have always loved working. Because really, when I compare, I've never really worked a day in my life. It was never like going to work. I told this guy to the invite this morning, I'm assistant coach of the Rams, and the coach that I had worked for as an assistant coach at UCLA and the Rams, Tommy Protha, called me up on a Sunday morning, said, Dick, J.D. Morgan, UCLA athletic director, is going to call you and wants you to fly to San Francisco today. He's going to offer you the head coaching job. Now, I'm telling you exactly. I was laying in bed 7 o'clock in the morning. So I called Chuck Knox, the head coach. I said, Chuck, I just got a phone call. We're still coaching the Rams. We're playing games. He says he wants to hire me as the head football coach. So I got a plane, flew to San Francisco, met with him, came back. got home, then I was changing into my coaching clothes because they had night meetings the night before a Monday night game on Sunday in Los Angeles. And Carol says to me, Dick, you're going to be the head coach? I said, yeah. She says, well, how much money are we going to make? I said, I know, I didn't ask. Honest to God truth. $27,500. That was my salary. That was exactly what I was making being the offensive backfield coach and special teams coach for Chuck Knox that year. You know, now you'd make $5 million. Sounds a little better, doesn't it? Yeah. Probably tougher to win today than it was then. But anyway, you know what I'm talking about. If you're willing to work, a lot of things will go your way. The next thing I was a nut on was developing relationships. I'm a relationship leader, okay? There are other people that aren't. I'm not saying they're wrong. I have to be what I am. And I don't know if I have any gifts, but I've always had a good emotional intelligence. I've always found it easy to get along with the kids I coached and the people I work with. It's never been an issue. Now, I'm repeating what I said. When I had a serious issue, I didn't keep it because we got to get ready to play games, not solve problems of some immature fart. You know, it just, and that happens. Sometimes it's amazing. I could tell you stories. I could write a book about some of the experiences I've had in the head coach's office. You know, it's amazing. And some of these kids have had terrible, terrible backgrounds, and they deserve a break. And you recognize that, and you're more patient with them. And normally, they come around pretty good. But I tell you, as a leader, I felt it was critical that we all, as a coaching staff, develop relationships. I wanted my linebacker coach to be appreciated by the linebackers he's coaching. I wanted my quarterback coach to be appreciated by the quarterback he's coaching. I wanted my coaches to be appreciated by me, and I wanted them to appreciate me. Because first off, we were starting out, we're all going to care about each other. Secondly, we're all going to be examples. We're all going to do the same thing. All right, we're going to have a defined plan, and we're going to work our ass off together in an environment that's fun to come. Within that, it's easier to build relationships. The finest relationships I have, 90% of them are former football players I've coached. I talked to Trent Green yesterday. Okay, he was my quarterback for 5 years at the Chiefs. He was going to be my starting quarterback in 1990 at the Rams, and he went down with a knee, and that's when Kurt Warner took over. You know, if anybody asked me, what do you miss about coaching? I said, I miss the relationships. Because what happens, you create an environment which good people excel, and it pulls you closer together, and you develop deeper, more sincere relationships. And I have a lot of faults. One of them, I'm an emotional guy. I used to get embarrassed because I tear up easily, okay? That's just me. And many times, talking to a player, I have teared up, especially when I'm cutting them. You cut somebody who's played for you for 4 years, tell them you can't, because you're doing your job as a leader, that's what you have to do. I'll tell you, it wipes you out. Some of those guys are my best friends today. Vince Papale, I cut 3 times. I kept finding a way to bring him back because I really, really cared about him. And he was good for the environment in our locker. He was good for the city. We didn't have anything positive other than Vince covering a punt, you know. So all those kind of things. But relationship building to me, on the field, we made him sweat, we made him tough, we made him angry, we made him mean. Off the field, we made him happy. My wife has probably fed 90% of the players I coached, starting in college on. NFL, Kansas City Chiefs, off-season, all right, linebacker week at home this week. Wednesday, I'm barbecuing linebackers and wives. Next week, it's quarterbacks, wide receivers. And next week, we have a table in our house here in Chester County that seats 18 people comfortably. Now, when you put the offensive line at there, they don't seat comfortably, okay? We've had those chairs re-glued 3 times. But that's the only piece of furniture we took with us. Why? Because we're going to bring them in our home. We're going to get to know these kids. And it's amazing in developing relationships, what you hear off the field, out of the meeting room, out of your own office, that you hear sitting around a dinner table. It is amazing. I've heard kids say, I never had Thanksgiving dinner. Never had it. I've heard kids say they never had a birthday cake. Never. I didn't hear that in the practice field. I didn't hear that in the locker room, but I heard it in my home. And so help me God, Jerry Sizemore called today. He called my wife's number. Calls her Miss Carol. How's Miss Carol? And he tell her I love her. I'm serious now. This is an all-pro, first-round pick right tackle out of University of Texas. He's in Texas Hall of Fame as well. But you build these relationships, and they become so deep, nobody wants to let the other guy down. They feel worse about letting you down than they do the negative experience they just experienced, because they feel they let you down. And the one thing I really miss, the constant reinforcement of good relationships every day I went to work. It was a little tougher as the kids got more sophisticated. There's more people that talk to them today. They have agents, and the agents have agents that handle this and this and this. They got cell phones, they got Twitter, they got all this other stuff. Everybody's talking to them. And a lot of them are having their whole approach to life distorted. So, I used to say this, guys, just remember this. You're nothing more than a football player. But I'll tell you this, when you leave this room, you're going to end up being a good one. And then what you do off the field, you're going to end up being a good person. My quote this morning to the reporter writing a story was that I never coached football. I coached people that played football. And all this stuff is part of what we as an organization coach. It started with me, the boss, the head coach, and trickled down through my staff. It doesn't do you any good to believe something if your staff doesn't believe it, because they'll spend more time with each player than you will as a head coach. So building relationships was really important to me. And I really enjoyed building the relationships off the field. I'll give you one great example. I don't want to go too long. I was invited to present the most valuable player trophy in the Pro Bowl in Hawaii one year I was coaching the Chiefs. So after the game's over, I go down and I present the the most valuable player award. That night, about 10 o'clock at night, in my hotel room, I get a phone call. Coach Vermeil, this is Bernard Cordero. I saw you on the field today. Can I get to see you? Bernard Cordero played for Napa JC for me. From Hawaii, he and 5 other Samoans came to California and went to junior college. He was playing for me at Napa JC. They had no money. And Carol would bring them home and feed them once in a while. They'd be scrounging. I mean, they didn't have any money. And it didn't have parental support and all that kind of stuff. So he says, I see you. It's just the way he talks. I saw you on the field. Can I see you? He called every hotel he could find until he found me in there. I said, no, we leave at noon, flying home. He said, I'll be there tomorrow. Okay. So he gets out of his car. He walks up the steps. Carol and I are standing there. Now here's a 5'11", 290-pound guard, Bernard Cordero, and from Napa JC, from Hawaii. Okay. The first thing he says, Mrs. Vermeil, are you still making that tuna casserole? Honest to God truth. Honest to God. Building relationships. He got married on January 28th to a girl that he met at Napa JC. That's the number one thing he got out of coming to school. My wife and I's anniversary was January 28th. Now it's 65 years. But anyway, we were in Hawaii celebrating our anniversary. This was, I forget which one it was. Bernard Cordero and his wife from Napa JC had dinner with us on our anniversary. Relationships. It doesn't have to be Kurt Warner, the Hall Pro, or Tony Gonzalez, or the greatest player in the world. I enjoyed some of my backups more than I enjoyed the guy playing in front of him. He just didn't have as much talent, but he had everything else, and sometimes more. Building relationships. Now, the last thing I would say, and you can't do any of this. You can't do any of this if you're not sincere, if you're not honest, if you don't tell the truth. You know, the truth sometimes hurts. I've had players come in and say, Coach, My wife and family are in Texas. We're in training camp, and geez, you know, it's going to be a long drive and that. And when, you know, the final cut's coming up here soon. What can I tell my wife? And I say, tell her to stay home until you make the football team. Tell them the truth. It bothers them when you do it. But I'll tell you what happens. It permeates your locker room. Because they know if they ask you a question, whether it makes you smile or tear up or get mad, it's the truth. There's an old saying that says, if you have integrity, nothing else matters. If you don't have integrity, nothing else matters. It is so true when you're a leader.